I would like to call the meeting of the Newburyport School Committee for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 to order. Do we have a roll, please? Attendance? Just call out his name. We're kind of improvising a little bit tonight. Our usual note taker is medically unavailable, and we have a late person just stepping in. So Joanne, if you would take attendance.
Bruce Menon.
Here.
Steve Cole.
Here.
David
Hockheiser. Here.
Sean Reardon.
Here.
Brian Callahan.
Here.
Tina Spalding. Here.
We're all in attendance.
Mayor Donna Holiday.
And Mayor Donna Holiday is absent, yes. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will open up with a period of public comment. If there's anybody here who has anything that they would like to share with the school committee, this is an opportunity to do that. I would ask you to sign in so that we can have your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes-ish. Is there anybody who has anything they want to share as part of public comment?
I would. Hi, members of the committee. Jamie Gagnon, 17 Daniel Lucy Way, Newburyport. I rise to talk about Article 7 on the agenda, which is to reaffirm your vote from the previous meeting about the policy from the 2018-19 Clipper Compass. I was a community member that took part in the community process, went online. I thought that was great. I made note of many of the other comments that were made, which basically ended up being what the policy was. I thought that was a great community effort. I liked how it was led by students. I liked how it was led by the principal. I think that showed great leadership. The superintendent and you folks at your meeting gave it a good debate, gave it a good argument. I think it ended up at just the right spot. With the speakers and the valedictorian and the salutatorian, I want to thank you for your service. And I hope that you would reaffirm that vote this evening when it comes to the agenda item. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Julie Gagnon, 5 Tracy Street, and I just wanted to reaffirm the val sale to keep it at the same top 2 GPA, I was going to call them scorers, but top 2 GPA scorers. I think the task force did a great job, and they did a lot of work. They involved the community, they involved the students, and I think we should uphold the record. Thank you.
There's nobody else. Do you have any warrants today?
Yes, we have some warrants. Three warrants. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $8,011.58 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One absent.
The next warrant, I move that the following named bills and payrolls for the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $32,884.27 be approved for the city auditor to make payments and deduct the funds from the school's account. There are no conflicts.
Wait a second. Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? One absent.
In the last warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $579,810.37 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? One absent. Great. We have a set of minutes from 12/16/2019 to approve. Does anybody have any changes or amendments to them that they noticed?
This is the 21st one?
These are the
that's
16.
16.
Yeah. What does it say on
The
here?
only thing I saw is that it didn't take place at the middle school library.
Mhm.
It took place at senior center.
Okay, that's one correction. There was actually another one that I saw. My recollection of the Val and Sal discussion was that a comment that Sean made was attributed to Stephen Cole. Just find that. Nope, this is not in this. I withdraw that. Okay, I withdraw that. Approval of the minutes as amended. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved with that one amendment of the location. We have student and staff recognitions, so I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. Well, first, it's an honor that we'll be recognizing Miss Christina Davis, 35 years of service, and I could go on 3 pages of all the work you've done in the district, but I will briefly read just of all the different jobs and everything you've meant to this great community. So Christina Davis was principal for grades 1 to 3, 35 years of distinguished service in Newburyport Public Schools. Christina has been the principal at the Bresnahan Elementary School for the past 15 years. In addition, Christina has worked at the Nock as a special education teacher, grades 5 to 8, classroom teacher, grade 6, library coordinator, curriculum and special educator coordinator, and in central office as director of curriculum instruction and assessment over her career here. She's also a Newburyport resident, grew up here, and I can't say enough about Christina Davis, and we had a surprise retirement party. I want to say I think we anticipated about 100 people, but you probably had about 250 people there, which is just an incredible dedication to you and what you meant to this community. So with no further ado, we'd like to recognize Christina Davis on behalf of the school committee.
Yeah, you do. You can come up incognito, but it would kind of ruin it.
And I went to the flower shop and picked that out myself. And there's nothing like a Sean Gallagher certificate you can put on your fridge.
I will,
Take
when I
a
get home.
quick photo. Did you want to say a couple things? I know.
I will just say how honored I am to have had the good fortune of working in this district for all these years. I absolutely loved being at the middle school as a teacher, as well as all the other roles I had fulfilled there. And then I was in central office. But I think being at the Bresnahan School was a beautiful match, and I am honored to have been able to have been there for the last 15 years, I think it's 15, at Bresnahan. It's a joy to see elementary school age children day in and day out, and to see them learn and grow and flourish. I've had some of your children at the Bresnahan School, and I will have cherished and treasured memories forever. So I can't thank all of you enough. The support that you have shown me through the years has meant a great deal to me. And like I've said, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to fulfill all those roles throughout all those years. I really realized on the first day of school that I had been in the district for some long time when Sean asked people to stand if they had been in the district for 10 years and 15 years and 20 years. And when he got to the very end, there were 4 of us standing in the room. So there are still 3 more people that have the same amount of years or pretty close to it as I. And that's when it was like, oh wow, I guess I'm not the new kid on the block any longer. But thank you everybody. It's just been a pleasure.
We do have a card for you that's being signed. Don't leave.
That's great. I didn't even notice that.
We didn't all sign it while you were talking. Some of us did.
Some of us came late.
I was not gonna cast any aspersions, Mr. Cole.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Christina, I'm really glad that I got to see you in a new office, remembering the old office at the Bresnahan. So thank you for shepherding us through that.
Well, it was a dream of a project, right? And that was our dream come true. I feel like I built that school. I feel very fortunate to have been a part of that project. That was the big conversation of mostly the talk on Thursday night at the party. It was all about the new school, and we did it. It was a lot of work, but we did it, and it's well worth it, every bit of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
We have another celebration.
We do. As part of our school committee meetings, we also recognize students, and we're honored to be recognizing Sophia Franco, grade 8. Principal Furlong will say a few words, but I just wanted to kind of give the viewers a background on Sophia. Has been nominated by the Nock staff as the 2020 Ambassador, Project 351 for Newburyport. Project 351 is a statewide leadership and service program where a student ambassador from each of the 351 cities and towns of Massachusetts work collaboratively to develop leadership skills and create positive change across the state. Sophia was selected because of her ability to be a role model, and she leads by example in all leadership areas unanimously by the Nock faculty. We're excited to see how she contributes to Project 351 and it's connecting Newburyport to the service projects of Project 351 program. And at this time, I'd like to have Principal Furlong maybe say a few things about Sophia. Together.
She's gonna come
there you
up
go.
with
I love it. Great.
Not coming along. So we have the honor every year to be a part of Project 351, and really we have some lasting ambassadors, people who really, the project has made a big difference in both the life of the Nock, Newburyport, and also their own lives. And I was telling Sophia the story of a student who is now a senior in college, who is still a part of the Project 351 community and still involves himself, and actually just won one of the George Bush Foundation Points of Light awards for his continued service for Project 351. So it is a project that, depending on what Sophia wants to do with it and how she takes it on and what it becomes for her, can be a lot of different things. And it can be very small and just a person who's emerging in their leadership and practicing some small things, or a person who wants to get, very deeply involved in the community and providing service and developing her own leadership skills across the whole state. So what's exciting, I think, is that we're sending a representative who is just so beloved, by all of her teaching teams, a young woman who has been tremendously well respected in the work that she's done in school, outside of school, and just the way she carries herself and represents the community. So we're excited to have her, and I want her to just share with them. She just was sort of inducted. They have a really big deal of induction on Martin Luther King weekend, and always that weekend because of the implications for service and the connections to that. So I just wanted to speak a little bit. They actually bring buses and bring the students in, connect a lot with the families, and really try to make a big deal of it. So I wanted to share a little bit about what your day was like.
Yeah, so first we went to Faneuil Hall and we heard people speak about and kind of inspire us to work together during the day and just do something to make a difference. And we listened to Charlie Baker, and then we went to the Greater Boston Food Bank, and we packaged and organized all of the things that people had donated, and we actually ended up packaging enough products for 200 families to use for about a year. And I think the most inspiring part about it was that it didn't matter where anybody was from. It didn't matter your background. Everybody was there to make a difference, and everybody was able to work together. And I made so many friends that I think I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And it was a good experience.
Great. Well, thank you for representing Newburyport, and thank you for speaking to the school committee without knowing that I was going to drag you up here. So congratulations.
Here's a certificate for you, and we're very proud of you, and we'll take a little photo. Principal Furlong, why don't you jump in here?
All right, nice. That's great. Thank you.
Congratulations, awesome job. All right.
You got that celebratory smile down just right.
I do?
It's great.
I
I
love
can see a
this
little twinkle in your teeth when you smile that way. All righty. We do not have our student representative here. It's not here. It's probably at the senior center.
Good day.
Could be. We have a presentation from Kyle. Great. Do you want to introduce the
Sure.
presentation?
So as Ms. Austin's setting up his presentation, as we all know, there's great pride and tradition here in Newburyport. And Kyle and his subcommittee, they kind of wanted to develop a brand of a logo that's very consistent with the great tradition, the great pride. And that was kind of their mission, is to kind of take this on and to come up with a logo that, number one, is, looks really nice, but also really ties in the history, the rich history here of Newburyport, Newburyport athletics. And I wanted Ms. Austin to come in and just really kind of go through the process that he took for a couple of years here, and all the detail that you put into this, and then really want to thank the subcommittee that spent a lot of time working with you on the final products.
Great,
So,
thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
So I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. But basically, this is my 5th year here. When I came in year 1, we had different clipper ships being used, different ends being used, different colors. It was all over the place. Each sports team was trying to create their own identity. And really what we were trying to do is create one unity, one unified athletic program. So this has actually been a 2-year process. I was at a conference. I met a person who was obviously there talking about his branding company. He happened to be working for the National Hockey League teams. He had just done the Las Vegas Golden Knights from start to finish. So he was very skilled. This started in August of 2017. Well, I'll go over the purpose first. Was to create a consistent brand for all of our athletic teams that reflect the strong tradition and success for our sports program, while also modernizing our current logos. The process started August 2017 with Jeff Eagle's creative. The committee that we put together once we were exploring this, The committee consisted of current Newburyport High School coaches, alumni, booster support groups, and myself. And each person on that committee, with the exception of myself, lives in Newburyport, went to Newburyport High School, probably will always live in Newburyport. This is their dream job if they're working here, their dream place to live. So there was, and it was different, a variety of backgrounds. Some were with some sport groups. I tried to get an angle from each side to create the best possible brand. We had several meetings. We had 5 meetings as a group, and we did a lot electronically as well to modify and update suggestions from Jeff. Before we made a final decision, we had a final presentation that included a larger committee that included athletes and parents and coaches and teachers and administration and alumni. So Jeff presented to a large group, and it was actually a very quick meeting because we all came to agreement right away. We like this clipper ship, we like this, and there was a lot of support moving forward, so we did do that. So the outcome, what I'll share with you tonight is we have a primary logo, we have a secondary logo, we have word marks that we'll be using on our uniforms, we have a unique font that was designed just for Newburyport High School. This font doesn't exist anywhere else. And we have our own Pantone colors. So it kind of solved some of the problems that were obvious when I first arrived. So the current identity, made up of multiple themes, and in the pamphlet that you have, all of this is a little bit clearer and easier to see. But we wanted to find something that was unique to Massachusetts and something that nobody else had. And obviously come up with consistent colors for our program. First thing Jeff did was he researched the Cape Ann League, which we're a member of, and he had his own opinion of some of these logos, but he was looking at name, initials, mascot colors. He didn't want us to have the same logo or anything that looked like anybody else. As you can see, there's a couple of logos there that are almost identical. The competitive landscape. Many other teams, not just high schools, use clippers as their logo. And you can see these are some examples here that Jeff researched, and they all have different objectives. What Jeff did was, each time he came to meet with us of the 5 meetings, he put together a brochure, a packet, similar to what you have here. And he did lots of research coming into it. We didn't just select an N that didn't have any significance to it. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. He did research, he went downtown, he spoke with many people. He actually said this was one of his most interesting jobs because there's so much tradition and history here in Newburyport that the more people he talked to, the more information he got, the broader the scope of his job was going to be. So the ivy walls of Newburyport High School, you know, he told us about the fires way back and how the city had to build things out of brick and stone, and he talked about the white pillars and the ivy-colored walls, and that's all going to come through with our logos. Symbols of history, tradition, excellence for over a century. Legacy of the N. It's hard to see in this picture here, but he went back through old yearbooks and saw pictures of what teams wore back 100 years. And most of them, the N was the primary logo, different versions of it, but that was a singular N, not an NHS or anything else. So that was something that he kept in mind as he was going to make this presentation. Clipper City, pretty good information in there. I learned quite a bit from this. He talked about the clipper ship and how Donald McKay created it, and that was one of the fastest ships for over 100 years. So as we were looking for our logo, we were trying to think, you know, we want speed, we want fast, we want strong. So he put a lot of emphasis on the hull. When you see the clipper ship, that was his emphasis because of speed. Because of that, Donald McKay and what he did with the clipper ship, the Newburyport became known as the Clipper City. So here's our primary logo here. It's not much different from our previous logo. If you looked at it side by side, you would notice, I would say, significant changes. So this doesn't exist anywhere else. This went through probably 5 revisions, and we have a certain color scheme that you'll see on the style guide, so that when our teams go to use this with an apparel company, it will be consistent. It doesn't matter what background you're using, it will be consistent. So there's actually, if you look at like the hull of the ship and how things were beveled into it, this is supposed to have a bevel look to an end. So this is our primary logo, which we'll be using on our uniforms and athletic apparel. Here's our secondary logo. This had very few revisions right from the start. We saw this and we immediately loved it. You can see the detail in the hull and the speed that comes with that. This has been pretty common since it came out, because prior to this project, we really didn't have a consistent clipper ship, so people were just using the end. So now it's great to be using an actual mascot. So this here is our style guide. Be a little bit easier to see on this display. So you can see the style guide. There's our N. Here's our, we call it a secondary logo, alternate logo right here. So those are the 2 logos that I just showed you. Those will be the primary logos that we use most of the time. Our secondary logos incorporates some of our logos and our word marks. Our word marks here will be used on uniforms. So all our away uniforms will say Newburyport in this style. All our home uniforms will say Clippers in this style. We can incorporate our secondary or our alternate logo into our word marks to create a unique logo. And then you can see it on various backgrounds. You can see the ship on various backgrounds. You have the font in the packet. It's not up here, but the font is actually NHS Athletic Style Guide. That is in our athletics font. So it's consistent with what's here. I'll leave that out for you, but I'll show you something that's it's a little bit difficult to see, but you can see it on here a little bit clearer. A school seal, and that's something that he kind of did extra because he enjoyed this project so much, with the history and with the pillars and with the uniqueness of Newburyport High School. He put together this school seal that has the compass, and it has onward forward, and it has our font, it has our new N, it has the pillars, and it has the ivy leaves, actually the number of ivy leaves that the high school was built. So that was kind of a fun project for him. And that's something maybe Mr. Wolf will use as we move forward with stationery or anything along those lines. So this has been in use since late fall. Teams are starting to use it on apparel. The uniforms that we're purchasing now will start to have this. So we're phasing out some of the things that we've had in the past. The kids and the coaches seem to like the modernization of it. And they, when we started with the N that we're currently using now, it's very generic N, like the Michigan N. Once we started using it, everybody saw it, people just caught on, and that was our N. So this is relatively new, but over time, this is going to be, it will really be recognized, and it will be unique to Newburyport, and it's something that, it's not just Newburyport High School. This can be shared with the district, this can be shared with our youth programs. But it's something, you can see the color schemes, we're really proud of it, the committee's proud of it, we had a great committee, parents, people have seen it. We rolled this out at our showcase night in December at the high school, and it had favorable results, and people were just excited that there was consistency, and we were all on the same page, and the comments were they see tradition here still. It's nothing too modern, it's still, it's what Newburyport is about, pride and tradition. So this is, and we feel very fortunate when I call a company to put a logo on, I'll just say I use alternate logo, boom, and they put it on. It's just ease of doing this as well. So that's where we're at.
Sure. Great. Can we get the lights back on?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I got a question.
Yeah, if we have questions, yeah.
The typeface,
are you gonna be able to send that actual font file out to people to use it? I'm thinking if youth services is doing an event with the stuff, they're gonna want like the headline, like you have it in the slide here, they're gonna wanna be able to write a block of text using the right
Right,
font.
I mean, they could, I guess, that's something probably Mr. Gallagher and I will talk about. I mean, this is really the athletic font, it's not.
Well, the one that they created, so it's just a standard true type font that he gave you the file for, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Other comments, questions?
Can we put this online
Yeah,
so people can see this?
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Sean.
Any other thoughts? Hard work, good work? Yes.
Okay.
Go with swag.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, job, Kyle. What's that?
Commemorative sweatshirts or something?
Yep. You want a question?
Yeah, I got one
We do have a
question.
question.
So, on your seal there, and I'm not trying to say that you left anything out, but on the seal, I think one of the important features, and you've presented it in some of the other pictures here, actually right in the front page is the cupola with a clipper above it. And that's a symbol in itself, because everybody's under the clipper. So, I mean, the seal's okay, but I think if you had the clipper ship at the top of it somehow, that would really be relevant, because that's the symbol in Newburyport High School, the cupola with a clipper ship above it, and your seal's missing that. So and again, I speak as an alumni, and I know we did a lot of work in fixing up the cupola and fixing up that clipper ship up there, and I know that oftentimes when students come to Newburyport and they talk about traditions, everybody is under the clipper, and that's why it's at the top of that building. So I don't know, if there was a way to get it on that seal, I think that would be very impressive. To not have the clipper ship on that seal, I think you're leaving something out. That's just my impression.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is second reading and possible vote for the Val Sal proposal. We did our first reading at the last meeting. When I looked at the minutes, I couldn't find the actual statement of the motion that we passed.
We didn't pass a motion. It was just the first reading.
It was the first reading? Oh, right, okay,
We just
good,
accepted.
Okay.
We just accepted the first reading.
Okay, good. Well, this is the second reading. If somebody will make a motion, we can, and second it, we can begin discussion. Do we have a motion on the Val and Sal recommendation?
We're gonna read it, there's gonna be, someone's here to present some stuff about it?
No.
You know?
No?
I would say I move to approve the motion as is, or the proposal as is, move it on to the next reading.
There's no.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
there's
it?
another.
Just-
Okay,
okay,
so
moving on to a vote.
Motion to a vote, yeah.
Yeah, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? David?
I just want to reiterate the points I made last time. I don't think becoming educated should be a competitive event, especially at the minuscule level of difference we're talking about. I don't think it's nearly as objective as people hope it is. I much prefer our system of high honors and honors that allows anybody who achieves that level of success to be recognized. I don't think one person's success is better than another person's success when it comes to, again, being educated. I also want to reiterate that a few years ago, we had a vote to not have a top 10. And not only did the actions of joining the North Shore event, but this policy undoes that. And so I think we need to recognize that. And I think we need to have some sort of discussion at some point as to how that happened. Not so much this proposal, but how we ended up joining this North Shore event, recognizing a top 5% of students when we said we weren't going to have a top 10. To me, that's a process problem that we have. I do, though, want to thank both the school administration, the students who were involved, the educators who were involved, Superintendent Gallagher, and anybody else in the community who got involved. I absolutely appreciate the process. The only piece I think that was missing, and I've said this a number of times, so forgive my repetitiveness, but we didn't have a discussion of the original vote, why it was there, its purpose throughout the process, so we kind of started from scratch. And I say we, I wasn't involved in the process for creating this new proposal, but when I asked, nobody had gone back and viewed the meeting where we came up to the original discussion. And so I think that's something else to consider as part of a process. If we're going to change a current policy, we need to figure out and fully understand why the policy exists in the first place. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts that people want to share? Sure.
I appreciate the process that the students went through, and I think that having a ValSal designation has been proven to demotivate students in general, the general student population. It leads to extrinsic motivation as opposed to intrinsic, and we really want to instill intrinsic motivation in all of our students. So it would be nice if we stuck with the original vote. Can you tell me what the original vote is?
The original vote was to eliminate distributed class rank.
Okay.
We were not going to be giving class ranks to students. That was essentially the original vote. Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was after the fact.
And
When
then
Andy came on board, they realized that
that
caused a problem
right.
with having a Val or Sal.
Right. We didn't change the school handbook around Val and Sal. We just eliminated ranking classes.
Okay, so there still is a ValSal.
This proposal would have a ValSal, yes.
And yes, currently there is still one. We never.
Okay.
At one point, Andy did point out that those monikers are really referring to the people who speak at graduation, but they have pretty universally taken on the life of recognizing the person with the top and the second to top GPA in a school. So those aren't naturally connected, but they've become connected by education lore.
The only thing I would say is that, the kids who get Val and Sal are generally taking all the AP classes. Not every subject has AP classes, which by default means that someone who's not a science kid can never, ever be Val, just because we have weighted grades. So I think that's another discussion to have, changing that policy or amending it somehow, because you're basically keeping a large section of students from ever having that opportunity, just because the grades are weighted for certain classes.
We have had conversations in the past. We haven't explored it fully, and I would expect the staff would be, about whether or not we would be opening AP classes. If the kid wants to make it available to everybody.
Do we currently have restrictions? I mean, that's a separate discussion that we're having right now, but are there prerequisites for taking AP, or can you just sign up?
I think there is prerequisites.
Angela, do you know?
Yeah, there's generally recommendations for an AP class.
Recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
So purely subjective. Do you need to hit a GPA?
No, from a teacher, I wouldn't call it purely
Yeah,
subjective.
it is. There's-
From a teacher.
I'm just going off of the
Subject.
committee came to us and said this is an objective mark because it's a grade versus subjective view of a teacher. So that was, I'm just saying we're kind of.
Students can choose an AP course as they could an elective. They can waive into any class.
Okay,
So
so they-
some course, there are prerequisite skills we would recommend students to have, but ultimately it's up to the discretion of the kid, the student, and the parents.
Yeah. I
So-
guess my example is that an art kid's not gonna take an AP science class.
Perfect. I hear you.
Right?
But maybe AP studio art, but that would limit
Right.
them to one subject area.
Is it the case, so it's not universal that the classes are weighted in other schools, right? There are some
Typically,
schools that do
classes are weighted.
non-weighted grades, right? Andy?
At other schools, if there's an AP or an honors
Or however they do it, but they're not weighted necessarily, the GPAs aren't weighted at some schools. It's still just.
There are some schools where they do not weight,
Right.
but there are many that
I don't
do.
know, I don't know if that's the solution,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's how it works,
Right.
if it's a universal thing.
Isn't it also true that we send unweighted grades to college, or do we send the weighted grades and they kind of disaggregate them?
We send them our profile, so they get a copy of the student's transcript, and then our profile they use to put into their formula to make sure that our students are measured at the same playing field as students coming from another school. It's really the profile that's the most important part, because that really kind of shows how our school does its grading, and then all other data that allows them to use a formula to fit in, so that when they're making a decision about a student, they're making a decision on the student kind of at the same level from where they're coming from all the different schools they may be coming from.
We could easily have this vote tonight, though, and then in the future potentially take up the process we used to weight grades, weight classes, right? We could separate those two.
I would think so.
So even if we voted tonight to have a Val-Sal in the future, we could say to have a Val-Sal with unweighted GPAs, giving more people opportunity to have the highest.
Right.
Currently, do we count non-core classes into a GPA, into a Val-Sal?
Everything gets added. into
Everybody?
GPA. Yep.
Yeah, any course you earn credit in, so like, study hall as we know it would not affect GPA, but everything else does.
I just want to say, I wanted to thank again for the process. I think the first vote that we took a couple of years ago, that was either my first meeting or second meeting, it was one of the first meetings. And I just feel a lot better about this process because it was student-run, because the community was involved. I think we kind of got rushed into a vote last time, not saying I would have changed my vote, I probably wouldn't have, but I do feel there wasn't much of a process there, and I don't think we looked closer enough at that. So that vote's always kind of stuck with me just because it did feel rushed, so, I'm in favor of moving this forward just because I do feel like there was a process, and I think, there was a lot of active involvement, not only by the students, but the community, so that's why I'm going to vote in favor.
You ready to take the vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Proposal is adopted.
So does this go directly into the handbook and the policy book too? How's that
I
process?
think these guys have to insert it into the book.
And then we still vote on that.
So when we come back in the spring.
Then we vote on that too,
Just-
correct?
Just the student.
What's that?
We vote on the student handbook
Right.
at the beginning of, well, we're trying to do it, we're trying to get the handbook
In the spring.
in the spring, as opposed to voting on it in September when school's already started.
And does it also go into the master policy book?
Not
No,
the
it's a single.
entire, the student handbook is a lot more detailed because it impacts students, but you would probably have a general school committee policy overseeing that.
I think Brian, you were asking if this goes into the handbook, policy handbook as its own page? Or
Yeah.
do we just approve the program of studies?
So
Of
you
which
have
this is a
the
piece.
student handbook, the Compass handbook that, you guys approve that. So Andy will have to take that section in his team regarding balance out, readjust it to reflect the proposal.
Right.
So you'll have that in front of
Right,
you.
so this is not its own policy.
No.
No.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Great. We have a custodian overtime. I'll turn that over to Sean.
Yes, this is part of contract negotiations and with the salary increases. This is just in step with For events, overtime for events only, going from $40 to $45.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I'm looking at the description. Is that like a formal thing, or that's just for our information?
Sorry. Probably. Yep, that's for you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
Wasn't that contract signed?
Yes, but it was the piece of the overtime to be, with the salary increases, would have an impact on the overtime. And Nancy's here for clarification if you need some more.
On the use of facility forms, custodians get a flat fee for overtime. So if a custodian works 4 hours, they get $40 an hour for those 4 hours. And over the last couple of contracts, now the highest custodial's overtime, or the average, has exceeded that amount. That's why we need the increase.
Can you say that again?
On the use of facilities, it's a flat fee for custodial overtime based on an average. And over the last few contracts, that average is now exceeded by the new rates that the custodians are getting.
So we pay them by the hour, but we assume how many hours it's going to?
No, they get, the $40 is an overtime per hour rate, an average of, however, we take the top 5 or 10 custodians and do an average. Now, their rate has exceeded that amount. So we need to increase the rate so that we're recouping enough money to cover the overtime.
Is that because they're working longer at events than we had originally estimated?
No, it's just that their hourly rate has gone up over the last few contracts based on increases, annual increases, which increases their overtime rate.
I understand that, but it says here to cover the actual cost of custodial overtime.
Right, so if a custodian works 5 hours at $40 an hour, it's $200, but we could actually be paying them $240 because of their individual overtime rate.
It's definitely confusing. I mean, I get it.
Sorry, I'm not-
Not you.
How does an individual have a different overtime rate than the contract?
It's not they're getting paid their contracted rate.
Yep.
The rate in the use of facilities agreement is old. It doesn't get upgraded every time we do a contract. It's an individual agreement outside of the contract.
I'm all for paying the custodians whatever they're working for and giving them the raise they assume they deserve. I just don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're here for a certain amount of hours, we pay them those overtime hours.
And we do. However, the amount of money that they're paying, say basketball has the gym for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So that custodian, the basketball group is going to pay us $200 for that custodian for the 5 hours that they work. But in actual fact, when we calculate that custodian's overtime, they could be getting $46 an hour for overtime that we have to pay. So the difference, we get charged. So we're just bringing that agreement up to our contracts.
So we need to update the contracts that we have.
No, we need to update
The individual agreement.
The individual
with these
agreements.
people, yes.
To match the contract.
Okay,
Okay, that makes sense.
it doesn't say that, it says increase the pay,
I know.
not the pay rate on the contracts we sign. Now it makes tons of sense to me.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
do we have to reword that before we vote on something? Because if we're voting on something that's not real.
We're not voting, that's not a motion, that's not a proposal.
Yeah, I know.
That was just a
but-
description.
So the motion will be worded
So is this just
differently?
The motion is go from 40 to 45, it's really the motion.
On the use of facilities.
And we
On the
can-
use of facilities,
Yeah, on the
okay.
use of facilities.
All right.
And
Do I
then we can-
do I have a motion?
Well, write this down first.
Well, Brian just said so.
What Brian just said, that's the motion. The motion is to go from $40 to $45 on the individual
Use of facilities.
use of facilities agreements.
Contracts,
Yes.
yes. Second?
Did you get that? That's what I
I
wanted.
got that, but who,
Bruce.
so Bruce is
Come-
filing the
combination.
motion and who seconded it?
Give it to Bruce.
David just seconded it.
I'll second, unless we want.
No.
I can't imagine that there's any more possible discussion about this that we could have and still retain an understanding of what's going on. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you very much, Nancy. School committee goals process, I would ask Sean and David to pitch in. I think we had a conversation, it was a long conversation, about a range of different potential goals. And I think we are in agreement, and Dave can explain this a little bit more, I think. We want to, as a school committee goal, revisit the superintendent evaluation for the purpose of making some review, some revision of it, and also adding some things to it that aren't in it, such as setting up a file throughout the course of the year for gathering evidence, as opposed to gathering evidence at the end of the year. Dave, is there more that you want to share about that?
No, we've just been talking about doing this for a long time, that we come to the end of the year every year, and while we have a good process for collecting the data we have, we do not have a good process for knowing what to write. And so we've been talking for some time now about collecting evidence throughout the year and how we were going to do that, and that's just something that we should be doing throughout the year. I don't think in the years that I've been here that the Superintendent Evaluation Committee has met, at least not that I know of. It's always, the closest thing is Nick putting the evidence together on his data charts at the end of the year. So I think we should have a process. There was talk about including some other pieces that seem to have gone awry, but I don't know that we need to talk about that here for now. So it's really just about solidifying the process by which we're going to come up with superintendent's evaluation.
So that's one goal that we haven't, it's not totally written yet, but that's a goal that will be coming forward from the subcommittee. Sean, anything to add to that? That goal?
No, not for that one. That one makes sense, like I said. And I think we're all wanting to know, especially with Nick gone and just the way things were kept in the past. I think it's a good idea to look at that and have that be a goal this year.
We had conversation around the strategic plan and the role of the school committee with regard to review, updating, and revision of that. I'll be talking a little bit more about that. Dave, your thoughts on that? Is that a goal for us?
I mean, it's sort of a, I don't know if it's going to be a policy goal, but I think it's a goal for the committee that we need to figure out how we're going to ensure that every 5 years we review the purpose of having a strategic plan and the process by which we're going to do it. I think our first process was good, but it was a first process, so we can definitely do better in a couple points. So I think we just need to think through that and to make sure that, you know, if 5-10 years from now we're not here, this group, that there's going to be people who know that we're supposed to have a strategic plan every 5 years.
What's the plan to review it more frequently than that? Because I would think, my experience with strategic plans, ideally you should try to review them every 6 months, if not a year, because things in your environment change, funding, policies. Where is that? Where is that in terms of having a review?
Absolutely. So, I mean, at some point, we're going to kind of solidify all these into maybe a presentation for goals.
Right.
Right now, just a broad brush on the things we came to agreement with, that yes, superintendent's evaluation should be there. Yes, we should be talking about a strategic plan. I love the idea of reviewing it more than every 5 years. I mean, we know Sean's been digging into it, but we really haven't, as a committee, taken a look at it since we left the committees.
The next agenda item is going to allow us to talk a little bit more about that, and Sean has some information I think that's going to be very useful for kicking the process off.
I mean, just for instance, in the last, 6 months, we've talked about the new policies around attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that figure into, strategic planning?
Yeah, well, I think the attendance would definitely fall under the social emotional work.
Right.
And that whole strategy and all of those action steps. So I think for me, it's going back. We actually have the strategic plan on a program that we discovered that we were going to utilize that, Joanne and myself, because there's a lot of pieces of that strategic plan that have been accomplished already over the last few years. So I think that that's the first step, to see what goals have been accomplished, what goals are in process, and then I think from there, then we start to, instead of redoing a whole strategic plan, we take the elements that we're looking to enhance. And I know it's the technology, place-based education, internships, and a lot of those pieces. So that's what Julian, myself, and Angela kind of take a look at, and to give the committee an update of where we're at. I think that's the first step.
I mean, it's my understanding that sort of the next step, I was not aware of this, but that the strategic plan was written on a software program, and that hasn't been really revisited or updated since the strategic plan was written. Is that?
I wouldn't say not at all, but
Right.
not recently.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
At the beginning, we were using, and I don't know that we are, it was an annual fee for that software. We have everything in our own electronic records, so the same work can be done
Right.
without using the software package.
There's a software package to write a strategic plan?
It's a software package that accompanies this particular strategic plan writing process that we went through, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, so. So anyhow, so that I think is going to be, that's going to be the first step. These guys are going to review, update, and then make a presentation, hopefully, when do you think?
Well, I can definitely give I'm hoping we get I'm looking at hopefully for the next school committee, and at least give an update on a lot of those action steps and the strategies. I think people are going to be very, pleasantly surprised and happy with, I think, the work that we're doing. Even before I got here, some of the work that was accomplished. But I think that's going to be really the foundation of moving forward as we develop the next 5 years.
So we'll begin this conversation, I think, when we get the update,
Yep.
which is going to be soon. And then we'll figure out what kind of process makes the most sense. Another policy, we talked about some of the issues the policy committee is going to need to deal with. And probably one of the first ones that I agree it should deal with is we don't really have a policy around the ownership of the products that school committee members are creating on their own laptops. We don't have access to files of some of the policy stuff. And historically, I have some white papers that are on my computers. So we need to have a policy to sort of centralize all of that and make sure that that we have copies of everything that we're doing as a group and doing as individuals. Dave, do you want to talk more about that?
No, I mean, that's big, but I mean, it also expands to, in my own experience, like the things teachers are doing on their computers. And what do we, like if a team leader is writing curriculum maps on a personal computer and then that team leader leaves, that's a lot of work that we stand to lose if we're not careful about the process. And it's happened to me in other schools. Google Drive is another issue because if people are creating things on Google Drive, to change the ownership on documents isn't as easy and quick as we would like. And so I think we really need to think about what people are doing with technology and where they're doing it. And I promised Bruce I wasn't lobbying for a district computer by any means, but it might make more sense at some level to make sure we know. I mean, Nick is a great example. He created all those policy documents. I don't know where they are.
We have them in central office.
But did he create them in central office, or like do you use Word files that he used?
We do.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
We do.
I'm just saying, like, it's something that should be
Well, it should be a policy around it, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
There are a number of other issues that policy is going to take up that we're still discussing.
We had also talked about budget.
Right, a budget goal.
A budget goal. It seemed to me, and we sent this back and forth among us, that a lot of the conversation we've had about budgets this year have to do with the context of spending. So what do we know about our students in schools that are driving us to spend money? And what have we done so far and what have we spent so far? And then what's the aspiration? Like, where is this going to go? Both in time and money for completion. And I think that came out pretty loud and clear at our conversation with City Council, that it would help them a lot more. I think the other thing that came out in City Council was a better understanding of what a level service budget looks like. So in a year that we're going to have a 3.1 increase, if we spend 2.9 just by opening the door, that's pretty much a level service year. So we need to think about how to message that to people, especially if we have any big aspirations, that budget increases aren't always what they seem.
Yep, and Nancy and I are kind of taking a look at that now for this year's projections and clarity on kind of what we're trying to do with that.
Great, so those are the goals that we've talked about.
And like we said, we had other pieces of the conversation, but we'll get there.
Good. Sheila, you look like you have a question.
No, I don't.
Good. I guess it's Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank
You know,
you.
if we get out of here by 8 o'clock, I get $1.
Okay.
Wait till the superintendent.
I'll get right to it because I know Sean likes to use a lot of words.
I know.
I'm going to give you an overview. We've had a very heavy week in professional development last week. It was a super exciting week. Bruce, you were there for a little bit of it, and thank you for coming along and participating. We had a week with Billy Donegan. Last week she was in district, and in your packets, I sent you the agendas for each day that she was here. I also sent you the school agendas for the 17th, which was our full professional development release day. But in addition to that, I just asked each principal to send me 3 of the highlights that they felt had the biggest impact on their teachers from the 17th. And as you were asking about the strategic plan, everything that happened on the 17th directly relates to one of the aspects of the strategic plan. So it was kind of exciting because I was working through all of the strategies and the actions in my mind as you were saying that and thinking about this report, and it's nice to see that it all connects. So at the high school, the 3 highlights they felt was working with Riverside trauma to help them continue to process the impact of the tragic loss we recently had at the high school. Each of their core departments focused on pairing skills alongside the content standards, and as I had talked to you about during our retreat, the work that we were doing in identifying our essential standards and then unpacking those standards and pairing the skills. Next to it is all the foundation of the skills-based curriculum development work that we're doing with Billy Donegan. And then each of their departments worked on identifying their priority standards as they worked towards that work. At the middle school, their staff all worked in curriculum-based teams to further develop their skills-based unit, and many of them met in small groups. I sent you the schedule of the breakout workshops that Billy Donegan held on the 17th, and there was a lot of middle school participation in those breakout groups with Billy Donegan. And then, in addition, Billy also worked at the end of the day with our teacher leaders from the middle school and the high school to help them build their leadership skills in facilitating this work as we move forward in the district. The Molins started their day after our keynote speaker, which Sean is going to speak about a little bit, I think. So But they started their day with a speaker from Safe Schools who did an excellent presentation, and it was very informative, and it was an LGBTQ training for the staff. And because it was only the Mullen staff, I had the opportunity to go into part of that training. The facilitator really handled it in a discussion format, which was really nice, which allowed the teachers to really talk about what was on their mind and how they can best support the students in front of them. Then Mullen teachers went on and shared ways that they're using and explicitly teaching Bloom's taxonomy as part of the keys to comprehension, routines that they're working on, and Jackie Russo worked with the Mullen IAs on the use of a variety of technologies that can be integrated into the ways that they support students in the classroom. The Bresnahan School continued to work on their building an inclusive environment, and they worked with Kathy Giles from Seaside Consultants, who's a former principal in the Reading schools and an administrator for Crest Collaborative. And she led a training focused on some essential questions. The first one was, why is it essential to adopt and implement research and evidence-based teaching models and frameworks? And how can we move forward with creating safe and supportive, trauma-sensitive, inclusive learning environments to ensure that all learners feel welcome, have a sense of belonging, and achieve their personal best emotionally, socially, and academically? So those were some pretty heavy essential questions.
A couple comments there.
There are, yeah. That they worked with, as she worked with the teachers in the morning.
Angela, can you read the first one again?
Sure. Why is it essential to adopt and implement research and evidence-based teaching models and frameworks?
Is that connected to the literacy work that they're doing?
It is. The literacy work and some of the curriculum alignment work to the standards as well, which they continue to work on in the afternoon. They worked in their respective grade level teams, identifying their power standards. Some of the teams were working in social studies, some of the teams in science, and some of the teams in ELA. And making those connections between how we're mapping that work and the skills-based unit development. They also did a very interesting project that I just want to send around some pictures for you to see. You guys can look at some of those, and I'll send you a couple more this way. They installed a sensory floor, and I don't know if you're aware of what a sensory floor is, but it was a collaborative effort between their occupational and physical therapist and an outside contractor. And they've become pretty popular in schools, but this is a sensory path, and it's a colorful and creative and playful way for kids to build sensory pathways, connections in the brain that are responsible for sight, touch, sound, etc., which enables students to complete complex multi-stage tasks. So it's kind of fun. You can pass these pictures around. Amy sent some pictures so that you could see the sensory pathways that they built at the Bresnahan on that day. And then lastly, the nurses, Kathy Riccio really wanted me to thank the school committee for providing the professionals in our district with the release time and with our professional days that we have, because of the amazing opportunities it allows for us to grow and develop and share our new knowledge with our students every day. She talked about how our opening speaker really kind of gave us a North Star for the school in creating 21st century learning. She talked about the nursing professional development in using their application program, SNAP, and being able to continually refine and their forms and the way that they gather data so that they can offer the best health services possible. And then also the nursing team trained over 62 instructional assistants and secretaries in Stop the Bleed at the end of the day on Friday. So there was an awful lot happening in the district. It was all really good. I think we had a theme of skills-based teaching and learning and social emotional health of our students woven through everything that happened in every school.
I just have a comment to add. I did have the opportunity to come by early and had breakfast with a couple of the high school teachers who were in the process of being trained by Billy, and I was blown away by the depth and passion and quality of the conversation over breakfast about how they're going to do this stuff and how important it is to them and how jazzed they are by approaching things this way. I was really knocked out and had a very poignant moment when one of the teachers said, you know, we're really going to need the school committee to support this effort because it's going to change the way we're doing things, and we need that support. I was surprised, but really, I was blown away by how excited they are to be learning this stuff and doing it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Bruce, because one thing I would add, Billy and I spent a lot of time talking this week about how to sustain the work and how to keep the work moving forward. And one of the things that she could not emphasize enough is to keep your focus in one place. We have such a tendency to set big goals and to want to do everything all at once. And she said, this is big. This is huge, all by itself. It needs to be the only goal, and stay focused there until you get to where you want to be. And I think that was very wise advice on her part, and I think it will take all of us to remind ourselves of that as we move forward, because, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in wanting to do the next best thing. And I think really if we're going to do this well, we have to keep our focus, we have to go deep, and we all have to be rowing in the same direction for it to work. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because we will need your support in that.
So keep the main thing, the main thing.
The main thing, for sure.
Sean's report.
Awesome. Yeah, and I would just have to, 100% follow up on that. And that's why I think we're really emphasizing the skills-based instruction and working with Billy and all the different cohorts. And now what's really neat, as Angela said, was bringing our teacher leaders into the fold, that not only have they all been trained, part of cohort 3, and some of them are 2 and 1, but now at the end of the day, it was really working with them on how to lead this work. And then we're also going to be utilizing Billy again in June, and there's going to be some time for the teacher leaders to really work with her on how to help facilitate this. So it's almost like train the trainer model. And if we can get this piece down with a true skills-based instruction that's focusing on the skill set of every of the standards and the essential skills, then all of these other either mandates or these changes with 21st century learning, if it's technology, if it's social emotional learning, you can really skills base all of that. And that's the exciting piece with our teachers, is that they're seeing newer ways to really engage the students and have the students take ownership. So I can't say enough about the faculty here in Newburyport willing. I mean, when you propose something to this faculty and you tell them this could help children, they're all on board, which is something I haven't seen in many other districts. So I can't say enough. So I get fired up with this stuff too, as you can tell. I have just superintendent's report. I have a few pieces that I want to talk about. I'm going to jump right to Renee Conley's presentation. So a lot of this work over the past year and working with teachers is, is this going to be transferable in college? Is this going to be transferable in the business world or the real world? And we had the great fortune of having Renee Conley come in, who actually doesn't speak to educators, As you can see by her profile, she's a vice president of communications of a $17 billion business, and we've heard of Newburyport Sigma before, the business in Burlington, but it's also a global business. And Renee Conley oversees 20,000 employees as part of the elite leadership team. And really, from knowing her and talking with her, I felt if she could speak about those transferable skills, about 21st century, about skills-based and how it transfers into the work that she's doing. Now, in the business world, they're fundamentally changing fast and furious, just like the education world. I mean, we're trying to catch up, but there's a lot of changes that she's seeing. So she really took, I think, that business approach, and I just asked her to articulate, transferable skills for what you're looking for employees, how business has changed, communication has changed, and I can't say enough about her presentations. And I just have to, I'll read a couple emails. I got a lot of emails on her presentation, and I'll just read you a couple that I received from faculty. This was one, what an awesome presentation this morning. Thank you for bringing Renee in. I would love to see our district follow up, connecting with Renee and others in the business world about those transferable skills. I want to tell you the speaker we listened to Friday was really interesting. It's not too often that we get to hear from people on the front lines in the business where many of our students will go. It's important that we know what potential business environment looks like and we can prepare it for them in the future. I want to thank you so much. I thought it was absolutely brilliant to bring someone in from the private sector. Renee Conley was an amazing speaker. It was invigorating to hear the fast-paced digital world that we're preparing our students to enter. For me, it was like hearing from a future boss of my students. Thank you for having Renee Conley present 21st Century Skills application to us Friday morning. Hearing her perspective on what skills she's looking for in employees was very helpful, thought-provoking as we continue to explore our approach to fostering a 21st century learning platform. And I received a lot more emails regarding her, not only her speech, but I think it really helped our faculty make the connection to the real world. And Renee, as I said, she's a global businesswoman. So, she was flying from Germany to Spain. She has overseas people in China, Singapore, everywhere, India. It was just amazing. And she was talking about communication has changed, and we did learn something new. And I do have, hope I pronounce this right, Pikachu, right? Is that what it was? Pikachu.
That's right. It's like 30, 40 years old now, right?
Yeah.
Not so new.
No, it's not new. But she was emphasizing how that it's no longer, when they do presentations, it's no longer PowerPoints with words. And then how important this is. So I have just some highlights of that.
Software.
And then the other piece.
It's not the little yellow guy.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Pokemon.
We thought you were talking about
No.
the little yellow guy from Pokemon.
No, I'm talking
Strategy
about
for conveying information.
conveying information through pictures.
Just a copyright infringement.
Yeah.
What's that?
Was her speech recorded?
It was not.
Okay.
It was not. I wish in hindsight, yeah. So then the other piece she talked about, this was actually interesting because the president is PhD biochemist because of, her company oversees drug development, for a lot of the illnesses. And so the president of the company sent her whole team this. So she pulled this out. She got this on coding. So he wanted the whole team to just go front to back now. But basically, she presented this, and all of the executives on the board got this and had to figure this out. And she said, this is the new, the new piece of coding.
Everybody's got it there. Look at the second page.
Yeah,
Looks like a Radio Shack toy.
yeah. This is pretty amazing. And what Angela and I thought was pretty amazing is her assignment was, with her team, is to figure this out over the weekend.
Bruce can't even pass the papers.
I know. You have to get artificial intelligence proofs. Like
Well, ironically, what I was going to say is that my kid arrived today.
Oh, really? You got one?
Yes.
So, yeah. So it was just an amazing keynote speaker. Now Renee said, as I said, I'm obviously friends with her, and I didn't even think of the, she was speaking to 14,000 business women before coming to Newburyport to speak to a few hundred educators, and she said, I'm more nervous for this than I am when I spoke the other day, but I think she did a great job, and we received nothing but positive feedback. And really, I think it's just emphasizing how we're all in this together as professionals and trying to figure it out. It was all about collaboration, leadership, iterations. She really emphasized about the first product isn't it's not the product that they accept. They multiple iterations on different assignments. The use of technology, she showed us a picture of her one of her conferences, and there was 9 people. She has 9 people from 9 different countries up on the screen along with her team, and no one has a pen or pencil or any of that anymore. And so she, along with the newer generation come in, she had to adapt and learn along the way, because 20 years ago, that's not how she was running business meetings. So it was just very inspiring, and I think we received a lot of positive feedback. I'm not sure if I think I covered it all, but
I think you did, but
You
I
had a
think the
PDF.
message, and I think the message that was really exciting was it's all about the application. It wasn't just these are the tools we use.
Correct.
It was about you have to be able to adapt to the changing tools quickly, on an ongoing basis to match your work.
Right.
And you can't do that unless collaboration is at the root of it. It would be impossible to do that all on your own. So to work alone isn't even a possibility if you want to be able to survive.
correct. Great, thank you. All right, so to switch gears, I also, so many papers here. Superintendent's report, bringing dual enrollment to the high school. So this is a partnership, we're calling it Advanced Studies Dual Enrollment Program. It's a partnership with Endicott College, working through the NEF, and they're obviously, we all know how valuable they are to the school system and how they enhance a lot of our programming. We presented this proposal to the NEF, so the NEF is going to support the course, so it's tuition-free for our students, juniors and seniors, and I had information there on the benefits of our high school student having a college course under their belt, so to speak, before they move on. If they can complete college course before they move on to post-secondary school, they can, I think that the statistics is over 85% will continue to finish within the 4 years and finish. So this, we're piloting a sociology course that's going to begin on February 6th. It's going to be on Thursday nights and end April 2nd. And we're going to pilot it and see how it goes for this year. We're looking hopefully to get 20 to 25 juniors or seniors to sign up, and we were talking about prerequisites and all of that, and we don't really have any of those. The only piece that we have for the students and families that do sign up is a commitment that they really need to be dedicated and committed to this course. It's run by Endicott College professor, and they oversee it. So it's going to be a true college experience for the students that are willing to take a risk and try it out. So
It's here though?
gonna be right at the high school, yeah.
What did you say you're gonna cap it at, 25?
25.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know how many signed up so far? 'Cause it's 2 weeks is the deadline.
No, we're just putting it out now because we had to get I wanted to make sure all the ducks are in a row. So during the finals and, I know Trish Blackstock and, the high school administration is gonna talk to seniors about this opportunity. Juniors and seniors, so, I'm assuming we're gonna be able to fill the class in hopefully a short time. But it's gonna be a lot of promotion at the high school. So, and then the idea is if this is successful, we would continue to add more classes in the fall and then even more in the spring. So the whole idea of the college and career readiness piece is to have an advanced study dual enrollment program that students can have some college courses on their way out before they graduate.
Sean, will it always be just juniors and seniors? Will there be any chance for?
Yeah, well, I think for right now, this is going to be with juniors and seniors, but I know, and Angela might be able to talk about this a little bit more, through our science program during the school day and Erin Hobbs, they're working with GOMI, and as part of the school day, there's going to be another opportunity for students to receive dual enrollment, and they're working on that right now. So we're looking at dual enrollment as, hopefully we can offer more opportunities during the school day, but this is outside of the school day. So that's kind of like our goal. But for this one here, I think down the road, it all depends how successful this is, but for right now, as we move forward, it's will be juniors and seniors. This one.
Sean, the way this is structured, the students enroll, if they complete the course, they get college credits, and they're picking up those credits at no cost to themselves.
Correct.
The NEF is funding.
NEF is, that's the benefit. This is tuition-free for the Newburyport high school students. The NEF is paying the tuition for this course. So the only piece that the families would pay is a registration fee of $25, and then if there are books associated with the college course, they would have to buy the books. But this is just a great opportunity for our students, and I can't thank the NEF enough for all their support. This is really important.
Sean, if I can just add, we have students that are already involved in dual enrollment classes through some of our community colleges and whatnot, but they go to campus for those classes. So they leave the high school for a portion of the day and they go to the campus to have those. So this is the first time that we're offering this in district, where the college professors are actually coming here. So there are other opportunities for dual enrollment, in district as it is, but this is the first time it's happening here.
I like that they're having it here. As
Yes.
opposed to kids going out on their own.
Exactly, I think it would be, right, and I think that was
Less isolating.
one of the benefits where it's their hometown night school at the high school. They're familiar with, obviously the community and all that. And a lot of our students are engaged in after-school activities, so most of practices, play practice and things like that end by that time, so they can just go right up to class.
Great.
It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I went into college with extra credits when I started. It allowed me not only to take 12 credits per semester for the first 2.5 years I was at school, but I always got to register early because you registered by number of credits. So like I was one of the first freshmen and then one of the first sophomores to get choice of classes, which was great. And doing it here adds that level of comfort. And you're right, I don't know what the exact statistic, but the amount of students not finishing college anymore is it's awful. And getting them used to that rigor and that experience dramatically increases their chance of, and they can knock off hopefully a lot of those gen ed classes that you don't like from around the school, which is, and especially now that a lot of colleges are shying away from AP credits.
Right.
This is a much better option.
And
It'd be nice to see what we can turn this into, because the more during the school day, obviously, the better it is for the kids.
Right.
Because what you're talking about, a day of school, a basketball practice, and then a college course,
Right.
makes for a long day.
Yeah, yeah. The other piece too, the other benefit that in my experience that we also saw was the academic confidence where the students having success. And then you see the switch of the students now, high school students, really getting motivated in the classes because they had college success. And the parents and teachers saw an absolute difference with that. So we're excited, and it's up to Mr. Wolf to get our 25 students there in the next few weeks, so I think we'll be all right.
So registration's open?
Yes, yeah. All right. Next, I have, the other piece I just want to update is Enforce 911. And then just to kind of run down this, the marshal, myself, we also included the fire chief and the fire department, taking a look at this Enforce 911. So basically, we're going to be piloting this program this spring, and really probably will end up adopting this. So basically, as we all know, with any type of emergency, response time is the key to a lot of emergencies. So if it's a medical emergency, if it was ever an intruder in the building, if it was anything with school safety, the response time by law enforcement and public safety is the key to minimize tragedy or to minimize injury. So this Enforce 911, it's under the law enforcement, it's real-time communication for the police officers and dispatch. So this response time is 12 seconds or less of notification. And that's real-time communication. Ongoing specific data is provided to the police from whoever hit the alert button. The police will then access floor plans, and there's also a reverse notification as part of this program where if there was a weather incident outside, if there was an accident outside, if there was an emergency outside, the police can also send messages to the school officials and teachers of, if it's a secure room, if there's something going on outside the building. The benefit of this application, it's two-way communication. It's intense, fast response. It's mass notification of all people, and it can be used on any device. And then for parents, obviously safer schools is an all hazards approach, and then faster unification. So basically the highlights of the program, as I said, every teacher and principal would have it on any device. So they could have it on their phone, could have it on their computer, and if there's an emergency, they end up just hitting the app, hitting the button. They have 12 seconds, so it would go off, you'd have 12 seconds if you made a mistake.
You don't want to butt dial that one.
No, you don't, no. And they put it off to the side.
That could be an emergency.
But if you, when you do hit the button, you have 12 seconds to stop it, like not to send it. But if you let it run, it will go 12 seconds. As soon as that alert goes out, it goes to dispatch, and then the police, the cruisers, the police officers, the fire department, everybody would get a notification that there's an incident going on in the school. It could be an emergency. The other piece is wherever that device is, whoever hit the button, they would have instant location of where the emergency is. So, if there's a big, Nock is a big school, if this was in the gym and someone hit the emergency button, the police and every cruiser would have, the emergency would go off to actually know where it is, number one. Number two is if I have the emergency and I can text, the dispatch will automatically text the person what's going on. I could say, we have an injury. I could text back and forth. That live stream goes to all the cruisers. So the police that are coming here, they know automatic, real-time, what the emergency is and what the response needs to be. So as we were going through the benefits of the program with our emergency personnel, it was we were really liking understanding that how beneficial this is, especially during an emergency, where everybody would be in communication with that threat. So the dispatch and police, they receive the alert. The building, they'll know exactly where the incident's happening. The building plans can then be pulled up. So the company will upload all the building plans. It's an ongoing two-way chat between the police and the people in the building. And as I said, they're receiving, the police emergency personnel receiving updated real-time intel while en route. And, you know, when you look at traditional 911 calls, typically it's a 2 to 4 minute response time. And then, you know, sometimes the dispatch needs to get information on what's happening from somebody. So this really, 12 seconds or less, and instant communication. The other piece is if the person that does utilize the alert, they don't have to communicate. So if I, for whatever reason, if I cannot communicate, it will be, you know, wherever this goes off, they'll have the ability to help. The other piece I liked about this too, if you're a phys ed teacher and you're out, you know, on the playground or something like that, and someone gets injured way out there, they would also have access, and then they could communicate. If you know, so when we went through the entire program, the process, it just seems like a no-brainer, because I think you'll be able to communicate with everybody in the building of what's going on. So our idea is we're going to pilot this. We're going to utilize that application. There's training that goes on, so they'll come in, they'll train the faculty, and then what we would like to do, and then they'll install it on all the devices in all the cruisers and also the fire department. And then what we would like to do is when we do our emergency this spring, when we do our practice, we're going to utilize the device as a trial run to see how it goes. So this is something to have in place that hopefully you never have to use. You know, that's the ultimate goal. But if we ever have an emergency or something where we need this, as I said, response time, 12 seconds or less, and then that goes, you know, if I'm even an off-duty officer and I have it on my phone, I could be visiting a school and find out something's going on, an emergency.
Are those chats recorded?
Oh, yeah.
It's all recorded, okay. And if someone, let's say that gym teacher called in
Yeah.
out in the field, would the administrator of the building be notified as
Yep.
well? Instantly?
Yep.
Wow.
Instantly.
Okay.
Everybody would be
That's great.
instantly notified, yes. And this is important for communication, you know, as we're looking at, you know, a lot of different scenarios. If it, as I said, weather, if it's a medical emergency, if it's an intruder in the building. So you could communicate to half the school to evacuate at the same time if there was ever someone in the building that shouldn't be in there. Could be in the, you know, the hallway, and you would have that. The police would go exactly where, you know, the threat is or the hazard. So they're not trying to figure out, you know, where to go and where to enter. So, and we want to test it to see in the spring.
So, two questions. Number one, it sounds like there's some sort of enhanced GPS kind of thing, because I know, like, if you were to turn Find My iPhone on, it would tell you Nock Middle School, but it wouldn't tell you room 220.
This would tell you.
So there's,
Yes.
they've improved GPS somehow. That's cool. It also sounds to me more like a city purchase than a school district purchase.
Well,
Because we have to
we're
get the
sharing
police
it,
involved,
yeah.
right?
So the police, we're sharing the cost of the program, so the police and the school was splitting the costs. Yeah.
So when you say we're piloting, you're like, we or Newburyport is piloting it, not
Correct.
Newburyport Schools is piloting
Correct,
this.
yeah.
Because there are some things like this that are more school-based.
Correct. This is really for us, it's really for the school, but I think it's going to be a successful program. And other cities have utilized it for, you know, like City Hall, things like that.
That was the question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
And any city, like youth services.
Yep.
I'm thinking, you said gym teachers, but I'm thinking like coaches could have
Exactly.
access to this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about emergency response and getting help immediately.
So Newburyport is looking to improve its 911 services.
Correct. Response time.
Okay.
Great. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Can you push, by the way, to open this up to youth sports as well? I remember watching a girl break a leg at a soccer game and standing there for about 15 minutes while this girl was screaming up at Cherry Hill, just screaming, waiting for the ambulance to come. And that's down the street from the firehouse, so.
Right. Well, and I think that's the issue, not an issue, because the response time is always, even through traditional 911, it's usually pretty quick, but this is instantaneous, yeah.
It's for crisis situations.
For crisis situations, like, a broken leg or a head injury, or, yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the only subcommittee that has met since our last meeting is finance, and
It went well.
it went well.
Wow.
It went well. Right, Steve?
I was going to defer to the members that were present.
Steve, did you happen to get my email about it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I already told John we authorized another $1 million.
Well, I told Steve, I thanked him for being willing to underwrite personally the transportation for away games.
Thanks, Steve.
So,
That'd be two of them.
we need to make a motion to postpone the organizational meeting till our next school committee meeting. And that would be the vote on the vice chair and going over the operating principles, norms of interaction, and the Mass state ethics. We read them and we sign off on them. They were sent out in this packet, so you have them. So I will take a motion to postpone the organizational meeting until next school committee meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Could we please make sure that the rest of the agenda reflects a lot of other stuff needed to happen? I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock. So if we're going to move stuff like that into the next meeting, we just need to.
Right, fine.
When is the next meeting?
It's like February, it's coming up.
February 3rd, yeah.
February 3rd, yeah. So we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion. Didn't we just vote? No?
What's that?
Good, we already voted. I believe we have a short executive session.
Yes.
So I need a motion to adjourn for the purpose of going into executive session.
So moved.
We will not be coming out. Second.
Second.
Roll call vote. Roll
Take
call vote.
attendance.
Any order.
Cost you.
Sheila?
Yeah.
It's a yes or no vote.
Yes. Steve?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
When's the second meeting?